Thank you very much, ma'am. And I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to tell you something. It's my job to talk about physical activity and women, and I'm going to talk about three main studies here. And the first one is the ICMR India Diabetes Study, in which we're looking at diabetes and all of its risk factors, including diet and physical activity across every single state in the country. At the current time, we've finished 21 out of the 28 states, and I'm going to be showing you the physical activity data. So what does this show? In India, how many people, and this is about 53,000 individuals, what is the percentage of inactivity? It's about 1 in 2 people, but do note that it's significantly higher in women. 67% of women in this country are inactive. And this is just to show you quickly state-wise data. Blue is men, pink is women. And look at those bars. They're really self-explanatory. Inactivity is clearly higher in women across the country, every single state. Now let's look at who meets the physical activity guidelines. What are they, by the way? It says that you need to do at least 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity. How many people meet it in the country? Less than 10%, and less than half of that in women. It's 5% overall, slightly better in urban areas, but terrible overall across the country. So we then looked at and said, okay, physical activity levels are low. Is this influencing diabetes? So we took, this is the next study, it's called DCLIP. We took a group of obese individuals with pre-diabetes, both men and women, and we said, okay, let's give them a supervised physical activity intervention along with dietary changes and look at prevention of diabetes. And look at it. Overall, there was a 32% reduction in diabetes, but look at the gender differences. 37% reduction in men, but 24% in women. So does that mean that physical activity doesn't work in women? No, it doesn't mean that. Here we're linking this to intensity of what is being done. Women are so inactive in their daily lives, they were unable to perform what they needed to perform. So we had to modify the routines for women, their activity, intensity of their exercise. Although they were doing it at milder intensities, and they got less benefit, right? So I think that's another story that we had to tell. And the third and final study is the pregnancy one. So this is the women in India with GDM strategy, the WINGS study. Here we selected about 770 pregnant women. We then looked at physical activity levels across all of this publication. And a lot of women were involved in work, but if you look at the recreational area, and that's here, right? It's about 11%. Sorry, it's here. 11% was recreational activity. And so this is walking. When you ask people what percentage are walking, these are pregnant women we're talking about, what percentage are walking? Only 11%, right? Everybody knows you have to take 10,000 steps a day to maintain health. How many were on average are pregnant women taking? 2,476 steps as measured by pedometry. Okay, so it's terrible when they're not walking at all. And if you think, oh, this is because of pregnancy, the national average is also something like that. It's less, I think. It's 2,000, less than that number. So at least in pregnancy, they're taking some kind of efforts. Very, very sad state of affairs. So if you look at now GDM versus non-GDM, again, this is a nice story because those who had GDM, as shown in orange, were more sedentary, significantly so as compared to non-GDM women. So this means that those who were actually walking were preventing GDM. But those who are not were there was more prevalence of GDM here. So we then went on to look at the intervention. So we found all this. We found GDM, non-GDM. We took these GDM women and gave them a physical activity intervention. It was simple walking with a few things that could be done in pregnancy. But the good thing I like about WINGS is that it was not woman-centric. It was family and community-centric as well. Because in India, pregnancy is a community affair, right? So your mother-in-law is telling you what to eat, and your neighbor is telling you what to eat and what to do and what not to do, and you have advice from everyone and their mother-in-law, right? So it's crazy. So we did woman-specific, family-specific, and community-specific efforts here, and this is what we found. Don't worry about this. We only said that recreational walking improved by 20%, by these kinds of efforts, educating everybody and saying walk more, and most importantly, sedentary behavior or sitting came down in these pregnant women by 26%. And then what did we do? We looked at adverse neonatal outcomes. So for reference, for someone who had increased sedentary behavior, the odds of adverse neonatal outcomes was 3.8. Whereas if you had recreational walking, then you were protected by so much more. And this is the first time that we were able to, and this is independent of body weight, this is independent of dietary factors and all of the other things that we showed. So I'd like to end here and just say quickly, what is it with women and physical activity? When we start off as children...
Can everybody come and sit down here?
Please do come and sit down.
Yeah.
When we start off with being children, maybe 5 or 6 year olds, the physical activity level is equal between boy and girl. The problem starts at puberty. And it's not just the hormonal problems and everything else that teenagers have, but there are huge social issues in our country. Girls can't go out, girls can't go to gyms, girls can't wear certain clothes, girls can't. So I think the important thing is not just educating the girl, but educating the community about the need for activity that then becomes, again, when she goes through pregnancy, her body goes through all this change, and this whole social pressure of eating for two, doing this, doing that. But it's important to get back to where you were and keeping the activity going throughout the lifetime, whether it's menopause, whether it's pregnancy, whether it's puberty, whenever it is. Simple things in life, keeping the sedentary behavior down and keeping the physical activity going, I think is a simple take-home message that all of us need.
Thanks, Anju.